Hey everyone, welcome back to Vampire Folklore. For today's video we are going back to the Vampire Diaries to talk about something I find very interesting, and that is of course the Phoenix Sword and Stone. I've always been fascinated with secret powerful weapons that appear in the show to offer explanations on certain situations and characters. I think the Vampire Diaries has plenty of these artifacts, and it's never too long before we discover the next one as new plots and characters are introduced. I love how the Phoenix Sword and Stone are linked, and we are originally led to believe that it's just the stone until the sword is later introduced. Obviously they both function together as one unified object, but interestingly enough, they both have their own story, and being the nerd that I am, you know I have to put a video together explaining the whole damn thing. So let's start with the stone first, because that's the object that was introduced to us first, and then we'll move on to the sword and talk about how it all comes together. This one is for the Vampire Diaries fans. Let's talk. The Phoenix Stone was created by shamans drawing power from a great spirit that was called upon to link a hunter called Reyna Cruz's spirit to it. Reyna then gained the ability to be reborn after death, when the shamans then sacrificed their lives in order to give their years to the hunter. It doesn't seem too clear what the stone was actually made of. It looks like a pale translucent gem like stone before it was activated, and then turns blood red with swirling bubbles within it and a hint of a glow. Prior to this revelation, little was known about the history of the Phoenix Stone, and even fewer written accounts regarding the stone's creation and use as a weapon seemed to exist, as none of the books Alaric sought out had any solid information on the object's purpose. It was almost as if the stone was purposely kept hidden from records, and anything that was released was done to mislead people away from the true nature of its power. The only person that knew it even existed was Bonnie, when she mentioned that it was a powerful artifact of Native American origin. The stone's primary function is to act as a metaphysical prison for the souls of any vampire stabbed in the heart with it, and keeps them trapped inside. It has been recently revealed that the stone is paired with a short sword known as the Phoenix Sword in order for it to be truly effective. The end of the blade seems to be shaped like a pointed crosshead, which in turn leaves an X-shaped scar when it pierces the body. When the stone is affixed to the end of the sword's hilt, the stone magically is shared with the blade, allowing it to be used to trap a vampire soul inside the prison within it. This happens when the blade is pierced through the heart of the vampire in question. When this occurs, the stone begins to glow from within, and a magical substance under the surface starts to move rapidly as the vampire's soul is essentially sucked inside. However, the sword must have the Phoenix Stone attached to its hilt in order to be used for this task, otherwise it's just an ordinary blade that won't do anything to a vampire if the latter is pierced with it. Now, there is also another additional power to this sword, and I'm going to explain it right now. We know that if it pierces the heart, it removes the vampire's soul, but it also works as a tracking device. There are a lot more places on the body than just the heart. There are many cases where a vampire could dodge the blade aimed at their heart and instead take a blow to the arm, chest, leg, or even the neck. The magic in the blade, and of course its unique shape, will cause an X-shaped scar to develop that even their enhanced cellular regeneration cannot heal, regardless of where they were struck. Once the X scar has been created, it will now act as a beacon for the hunter in question to be able to track that vampire down no matter where they are in the world, near or far. Essentially, the vampire will be on the run for the rest of their lives, and in addition to that, the scars linked to the hunter causes the hunter to develop an unbreakable, unavoidable, obsessive desire to seek the vampire out like they can't control it in order to finish them off. Reyna Cruz displayed her undeniable hunger to catch Stefan, and she had no choice. The scar can also be transferred to another individual to lift the bounty of one person and bestow it upon another. If we look at Bo, for example, in a flashback scene, it's shown that he seems to have been stabbed with the blade near his neck, but it missed his heart and prevented his soul from being trapped inside. However, the blade did sever his vocal cords, and the magic from the blade kept them from repairing themselves, causing Bo to lose the ability to speak. He was left with a permanent X-shaped scar which remained closed for over a century. He got a stark reminder that he was still a marked man, however, when it opened up, marking Reyna's return. Poor Bo was finished off by the Huntress eventually. I liked Bo. So what happens when the soul gets trapped inside the stone, and is it the same place for everyone? It appears as if the only thing the vampires trapped inside have in common is the fact that they are being forced to relive a hellish environment. Julian described his time within the stone as a living hell where time has no meaning. He also said that each day in the stone's prison he believed that he was going to be able to escape, only to ultimately be forced to kill Lily over and over and over again, which also lends credence to the theory that as a kind of hell dimension, the environment is based on what will be the most torturous to the souls trapped within it. Stefan reveals that he finally gave in to the Phoenix Stone's desires to let his brother go, as Stefan's strong attachment to Damon has hampered him his entire life. Bonnie and Nora were quickly able to reunite his soul into his body, but the stone had left its effects on the younger Salvatore brother. Damon, on the other hand, as stubborn as ever, fought the stone's magic all the way and would not accept its truth, instead seeking a different way out. Bonnie resurrected him twice, though when he finally accepted that he was sorry for what he did and said to his mother, the actual Bonnie was able to pull him out of the stone. Disoriented and thinking he was still in the stone, he lashed out, seeking to repeat the day over to see his mother once again. The stone's effect on Damon really highlighted the inner demons he battled over his relationship with Lily. Those cases were when the body was reunited with the correct soul. There was also the case of what happens when the soul and body are mismatched, as they were not properly reunited with the correct spell, as was the case for Oscar and for Joe. With Oscar, at least it was a vampire soul in a vampire body. But with Joe, well, she was gone. A vampire woman's soul was residing in her body, and because of the mismatch, the vampire was confused and had severe amnesia. It took her some time to realise that she wasn't the person Alaric was trying to convince her she was. Joe's body couldn't contain the vampiric soul for much longer, and her body began to die. At least the vampire was released to the afterlife and didn't have to return to the misery of the hellish stone. So let's just talk a little more about the sword itself and a little about its history, which is going to be difficult because there's not that much history to actually talk about, and that's because, as I was saying earlier, the less written about it, the less it will be sought after or desired and end up falling into the wrong hands. Now, the sword originally belonged to Vicente Cruz, a vampire hunter who was one of the Five, and if you want to see a video on the Brotherhood of the Five, then you can click the card to watch it after this video. Since the sword was small in size, Vicente gave this sword to his younger daughter Reina, who wanted to be a vampire hunter just like her dad. Vicente trained his daughter in combat and swordsmanship for many years. Unfortunately, many years later, a vampire by the name of Julian attacked Vicente and Reina's village. Despite their skill, Julian was still incredibly strong and overpowered them both. Just as he was about to kill Vicente, Reina told him that her father was one of the Five and that killing him will be his undoing. Julian then outsmarted Reina by forcing her to kill her father through compulsion with the sword her father gifted her. Reina's heartbreak soon turns to anger and vengeance. Her personality immediately dimmed as she was consumed with the thought of taking her revenge not only on Julian but every vampire she came across. She sought out and found a group of shamans who also shared her desire to eradicate vampires. They linked their life to her and her sword and gave her the Phoenix Stone before killing themselves so that she could live longer. I briefly mentioned this earlier in the video, but I'll clarify how the shaman's sacrifice works. For every shaman that took their own life, Reina would then take their years, but from the beginning. So basically she'd live a full and complete life, grow old, die and then be reborn again. Which explains why she was an old woman when we were first introduced to her. When all of Reina's lives run out, that would be it. She'd die and the hunter's spell would be null and void unless she found another group of shamans to begin the ritual all over again. There you have it, everyone. That is today's video on the Phoenix Sword and Stone explained, with a little Reina Cruz thrown in there too. If you want to see a full detailed video on Reina, then let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like the video so it can grow, and if you want to join the Vampire Folklore family, then feel free to do so by clicking that subscribe button.